Excellent. Right on. Good morning, team. Welcome to the Standard Podcast, where we raise the bar, rebuild the culture, and call out the lies. No one else will. This isn't motivation. This is a movement. I'm Thomas Rowe, your host, joined by Aaron Charles, my co-host, and we're sitting down with Kalei Mahi. Did I get that right?
Kalei.
Kalei. God bless America. Founder and Chief Legacy Officer of NextGen Legacy NIL. A former record-holding Division I athlete, Kalei has spent over 15 years working with global brands like AT&T, Coca-Cola, Sony, Lexus, and American Express, along with an award-winning agency in developing influencer campaigns for YouTube, Google, Sephora, and eBay. Today, she's on a mission to close the education gap that leaves too many student athletes unprepared for the business side of NIL, helping athletes, families, and universities navigate partnerships, contracts, and personal branding in a way that protects their value and sets them up for long-term success. We're diving into the truth behind what it really takes to build identity, discipline, and legacy in sports and in life. All right, let's get into it. Kalei.
Yes.
There it is.
Thank you so much. That was so kind.
Third time's a charm.
You got it.
We will get it right, folks. We will. But I am so excited for today because you are incredible and have a wealth of knowledge. So everybody tune in. This is going to be high value.
Right on. Yeah. All right. So let's start here. Kalei, you work with some of the biggest brands in the world. Now that you're helping student athletes navigate NIL, what does raising the standard mean to you, especially in the work you're doing with NextGen Legacy NIL?
Oh man, I love this question so much. But first of all, thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing to help, high school athletes, college athletes, professional athletes, navigate this life with intention and purpose. So thank you so much for including me. What's funny is raising the standard to me is about retraining our nervous system to tolerate success. And I think there have been so many of us who have been conditioned in our lives to anticipate failure and to be worried about outcome when we should be thinking about what if everything works out? So let's raise the standards of thinking of our success first, not in an arrogant way by any means, but in a way where we feel confident in our abilities, in our education, in our training, in our athletics, to bring those success moments to us and then to enjoy, those moments that are so impactful because, we're so anticipatory of negativity and we're so concerned about not being enough that we should really raise our standards to be tolerating the successes that we do have in our lives. And there should be an abundance of those successes that we celebrate, whether they're small or large.
That's badass. I think that pretty much ends the podcast. We could just take it from there. Great answer.
Great, we're done.
Listen to that, folks. That's all you need.
What would you say is the biggest misconception that you feel the culture of the NIL industry sold student athletes about partnerships, branding, and building value? The biggest misconception.
Biggest misconception out there is that you have a resource to you like a platform or a marketplace that will give you access to deals when in fact, sure, they do to some degree, but if they're not providing you with the resources that you need to navigate those marketplace platforms, you're not advocating for yourself well enough. You're not commanding the right rate or fee for your partnership. And to also just sort of treat these partnerships on these marketplaces as one-off opportunities where you constantly have to chase those deals. Schools are doing a disservice to their student athletes by not providing consistent resources, whether they're available through, the business school or the comm school or an entrepreneurial program. Schools are kind of checking the box and saying, come to our school because we have this marketplace platform and we can guarantee that you will have visibility and you'll get potentially some deals. But if they're not going to give you the resources to teach you how to go after these partnerships properly, then it just becomes a transaction the brands are not really as interested in as if they were to be long-term partnerships. So I would say to those folks, You should be asking for more to those student athletes. You should be doing your research and your homework and finding partners that align with you, not just because they're available on the marketplace. Do your homework, ask the questions, and reach out to a community like in LinkedIn, where there are so many resources available to you out there where people want to work with student athletes. So just maybe don't know how to.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty incredible, because one of the things we've learned, and you and I talked about this when we first met, that initially an athlete just kind of found a program and a coaching staff that worked for them. But now it's all about branding. It's all about image. There's much more that goes into it. One of the things that we talk about with a lot of athletes and families is we talk about, a simple mistake or a careless error could cost you a scholarship. Now it can cost you six figures just with making an impulsive decision or a wrong decision.
100%.
You talk about closing the education gap that leaves athletes unprepared for the business side of NIL. How does that misconception show up with athletes that you work with, and what truth needs to replace that?
A lot of athletes that I'm working with right now range from a 12-year-old that I work with who is trying to establish their personal brand on up to college players who are already in the system, who have maybe dabbled in some NIL partnerships in the past. Every student athlete is different, and everybody has value that they bring. And so for me, I have to meet the student athletes where they're at, right? Because there are some standard applications out there where people will say, okay, build your brand, post the content and just get out there and just keep trying. And if it doesn't work, sorry about that. But for me, it's about intention. You have to, as a student athlete, understand who you are rooted as a person beyond your sport. So your sport is great, and you have a community, and you have this rabid following of people who are genuinely cheering you on and are interested in your life. But these student athletes have to figure out how to evolve into these other humans, right? So some athletes are all about keeping Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior front and focused. And that is what they stand on. And that is what drives them as a person. And I love that for them. And they evangelize it and they talk about it. However, they do need to be intentional about the type of brands that they work with, because those brands may not feel the same way. Maybe they are religion agnostic. Maybe they want to talk to everybody. So if they feel like this may not be the right fit for us, that's okay. Right. For a student athlete, it's okay for you to go find those brands that align best with who you are and what your values are as a person beyond your sport. So we look at like the endemic and the non-endemic brands that make the most sense. If you're a swimmer, the low-hanging fruit are the tiers or the TYRs, the Speedos of the world, the arenas, that makes sense to the endemic sport because you're in their suits or you're in their goggles or their caps or whatever it is. The non-endemic might be Chick-fil-A. It might be Domino's. It could be a brand that, you resonate with. It's somebody that you love, but stop trying to change yourself to fit a brand. The brand should be trying to fit you as a student athlete. So, there's a misconception that you have to bend in order to be successful. You have to change who you are. That's not the case, and for a 12-year-old, we're looking at who he is right now and trying to build his social media presence. We're trying to create an idea of what he likes right now in the moment. So that's the Roblox, that's the Nerf guns, that's the Legos. That's great. But as he starts to evolve into a 16 and an 18 and a 20-year-old, what are the things that matter most to him? Keep the playfulness in his content. We want to make sure that the personality is still there because the brand is going to be attracted to that. But again, it's being intentional about what those things are. For a college athlete, we want to make sure that college athletes feel supported in the sense of they can balance and juggle everything. There's this worry sometimes that I have a brand deal and I have deliverables that I have to meet, but I have practice, I have a paper due, I have a test coming up, I have all of these things, and now I'm in analysis paralysis mode. Sure. So it's taking one of those moments where we have to step back away and we have to figure out what those priorities are. And there are brands who tell student athletes, take a breath, we're not going anywhere. And I love Powerade builds that stuff into their contracts. Powerade will say, hey, we love you. We think you're great. We love everything you stand for. If you are struggling right now, take a step back, no penalties. We will be here when you're ready to go again. And I love that for brands. So let's do more of that, right? Let's kind of find those companies that fit around their student athletes and put their arms around them and say, we've got you.
That's badass. And we need more Powerades for sure. And I guess it's kind of fair to assume that every pot has a lid, right?
Right.
There isn't a one size fits all, and sometimes you just have to hold out, especially if you're very loyal to your core values. Like I love what you were talking about. Somebody with faith, that we know that there's certain products or brands that wouldn't resonate with them. That's kick ass. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron here. As I mentioned, we're going to tag team you. Segment 2 is on identity and legacy. Aaron, take it away.
Okay. So thank you again for your insights. And obviously you've been a record holder as a Division I athlete. You've spent 15 years working with some of the most iconic global brands. Beyond all the credentials, all the experience, who is Kalei, and how do you define character, integrity, and discipline?
Oh man, who am I as a person? I am a mom, I'm a wife, I am a daughter, a sister, a cousin, many, many times over. And the person that I am, my integrity lies in the relationships that I build with those. My goal is to always lift up others, support others, help people find their voice and support them in their journey. I want to be the person that establishes connections for those around me, even for perfect strangers. And I've had some success with that recently on LinkedIn, where I've had this influx of people reach out because maybe something I said resonated, but I also want to give them support. It has to be a two-way street. I have to be able to deposit into their bank, right, so to speak, their emotional bank, their well-being bank, whatever that is. And they do the same for me. So it's always this give and take. And that's what I want my legacy and, my integrity to say about me is that I'm supportive of those around me. And I think my legacy are my kids, my two sons who are, 11 and 7. I want to raise these men to be respectful and kind and to be helpful to those around them. And I see that in them now. And those are the things that, make you feel good about as a parent. But that's what I think is so important to me is leading by example and leading with intention, and always remembering that it's not a take in this relationship. I will always give more than I want to take.
Sure.
I love that. And it's so true. It's so much important to deposit and give to others, because what you get back is so invaluable from doing that. So I love that. And what a mission. I'm a mom as well, so that resonates so deeply with me. How do you help athletes that you're working with really understand what their legacy means beyond the performance, beyond the sport?
We have to have really honest conversations, with our student athletes. The majority of the student athletes I work with will not go pro beyond their sport for one reason or another. We know how competitive it is with the NBA, the MLB, the MLS. I mean, with every, professional league out there. So when I talk with these student athletes, it's about having a conversation of what are you passionate and what gets you fired up about when you get out of bed in the morning? What are the things that motivate you beyond your sport? Because you are more than just an athlete. You're somebody who offers a lot of value. So how do we capture that? How do we have those conversations where we say, tell me about what is your perfect day? What does your perfect career look like? Is it in sports? Is it in marketing? Lay it out there and let's weigh the pros and the cons. Let's figure out, can you build something for yourself? Because now we're in an age where people can become entrepreneurs right out of college. And I love that so much, because nobody is asking for permission. But people aren't asking for permission the way that they used to. I mean, 20 years ago when I got my first job out of college, I was thinking, okay, now I've got to stay small and I have to sort of fit the mold of this corporate environment. But now students and student athletes come out of college saying, I'm going to kick the door wide open and say, I'm here and I got something of value to give to all of you. So let's capture what that is and have those discussions. And if you haven't figured that out yet, that's okay. Sometimes you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince or your princess. So that also is applicable to your career. But, these paths are not linear. I mean, I said to a couple of friends not that long ago that my career looks like a drunk game of chutes and ladders, because in this career has been linear for me. It's been rooted in foundationally in, marketing and whatnot, but But for me, the twists and the turns have always taught me something that has become now applicable to what I do now. So for those student athletes and for the students coming out, let's figure out what your drunk game of chutes and ladders is. Let's start over here. And if that doesn't work, that's okay. We pivot to something else. But those pivots are not failures. They're learning and teaching moments and learning opportunities for them to take away something that is really important and valuable for their future.
Okay, kids, that's like the best advice anybody can. I'm like, you summed it up, is life is a drunk game of chutes and ladder. Like, you don't know where anything's leading or going, but all of it's on purpose and intentional, which is amazing.
Okay.
And I love that descriptor. I'm like, I'm going to shamelessly steal that from you because I think that's awesome.
It's all yours.
So what's one truth that you think student athletes, families, maybe even university or brands need to hear about NIL that most are not hearing?
Ooh, that's such a good question. As far as what truths exist, student athletes for a brand, if I were sitting back on the brand side or sitting on the agency side, student athletes are some of the most coachable people you will ever work with. They understand the hustle and the grind. They crave feedback that's honest. You don't need to tap dance around it. You can be blunt, respectfully. You can be blunt and always watch the tone in which you deliver, messaging. But it's about these student athletes can actually take feedback that you provide them as long as it makes sense and it's detailed, and they can turn around and pivot, to hit the things that you need them to hit, which I love about that. Student athletes are also really creative, and they're not shy to take the ball, literal, figuratively, take the ball and run with it. I mean, these student athletes are bold and they have so much grit to them that they make the best brand ambassadors. They make the best people to work with. Are they going to be, award-winning actors on, social media? No, but that's not why you're partnering with them. You're partnering with them because they're such hustlers. They're great at what they do. They talk passionately about their sport or about a brand that they work with. So they shouldn't be sleeping on student athletes in influencer marketing or content creation. These student athletes bring a lot of value, and they also bring a very, very passionate audience behind them. There's a swimmer that I follow on Instagram. He's phenomenal. I mean, and it's funny because we speak swimmerese, it's our own language. I had a friend of mine at my last agency, Alex, who was a swimmer, and the two of us were talking about sets that we used to do in college. And there were a couple people sitting around us looking like we were speaking Russian, and we speak swimmerese, but the same kind of passion that we have, translates into this kid's content. It's fantastic. And as somebody who, retired after 18 years as a competitive swimmer, when I look at this, 17-year-old boy making content, I'm like, this dude, this guy is great. Why don't we have more, brand partnerships for him? Because he is so rock solid.
That's
so,
awesome.
We got to look at those athletes as being the hustlers that they're not lazy. They know how to keep a schedule. They know how to deliver and communicate. So let's not sleep on the athlete.
That's awesome. So Thomas, I'm going to let you take it away.
Right on. Okay, segment 3, advice across all stages. If you could sit down with yourself when you were a Division I athlete, and let's say that you were getting as much attention and NIL opportunity then as these athletes do now, before you knew what you knew about branding and business, what advice would you give that version of Kalei?
Oh, so, it's funny is Facebook was coming out at the time when I was in college. And I think about, oh God, what would I be like now as a student athlete? What would my social media footprint look like for athletes now? That if I know now if I knew then what I know now, I would say whatever you're putting out there, it has to be true to who you are. Again, don't fit yourself. There are so many great examples of success stories in content creation, whether it's Livy Dunn or you look at Flauge right now, who's doing an amazing juggling act of her career in music as well as being a basketball player. Those are platinum standards. Those are the gold medal standards of student athletes who have built beautiful content and have done a great job. But to those athletes who are not that, I would say, do your homework on what hits for your particular audience. Be true to yourself and who you are as a person, and make sure that the content that you're creating reflects that. As a swimmer, I can't be posting the same kind of content that a Livy Dunn would post because, one, I'm not that flexible. But two, she has a very particular look and feel about what she does. So for me, I would be very obsessive of or passionate, maybe not obsessive, but I would be passionate about learning the analytics behind content creation. I would look at collaborating with student athletes around me, because there's not only safety in numbers, but you have an opportunity to broaden your audience when you collaborate on social media with other content creators. Find content that is the content that you want to see. Produce what you're excited about, because there's going to be an audience there that's looking at it going, I love this. I want to see more of this. And then the algorithm is just going to continue to serve them your content more frequently because you are posting stuff that resonates with other people. But be intentional, be strategic. And then when it comes to those brand partnerships, don't be afraid to start reaching out, because a no is not a no. It's a no, not right now. And another door is going to open up to another brand or another brand partnership that is going to say, yeah, let's go. And treat it as a partnership. Don't treat it as a one-off transaction, because we don't want to chase money. We want to chase partnerships and legacy.
Badass. That is really cool. What about student athletes who are navigating NIL right now in high school or college? What do they need to understand about protecting their value and building something that lasts?
Ooh, high school students right now are poised to do some amazing things with brand partnerships and NIL, where we as parents need to step up and step in and protect our student athletes is by understanding contract language, to understand what deliverables are being asked of our athletes. And it's okay to say no. There's power in no. Again, there's something to be said about integrity and selecting brands that make sense for you, because you don't want to just chase the dollar. People see through transactional partnerships all the time. How many times have we seen influencers who have, quote unquote, sold out? We don't want to be that. We want to be the ones that are going after the right brands. But for parents and for student athletes, we need to get them caught up on financial literacy, number one, making sure that you are holding, 20 to 30% for your taxes, because that becomes a thing. No more cash jobs, no more getting paid under the table at the ice cream shop, whatever that is. You have to treat this like a legitimate business. So surround yourself with the right resources, the right CPAs or financial advisors, the right lawyers to take a look at contracts. We want to make sure that you're staying away from anything that says in perpetuity, because you may not be a 5-star athlete right now, but that doesn't mean that in a few years you aren't a 5-star athlete. And that brand has your content in perpetuity. Stay away from anything that says in perpetuity, because you don't know what your future looks like. And if they've only paid you $300 and you blew up and they're able to repurpose your content, you're not getting paid for that. So we have to protect them in the sense of, let's look at contract language. Let's make sure that we are protecting their future with the financial piece of it. And then, have the conversations. We allow, athletes to go onto the field and put helmets and pads and gear on to protect them physically. But off the field, what are we doing to help protect them from bad actors who exist in this business world who are trying to take advantage of student athletes and their families? We've seen enough Netflix documentaries about, parents who get involved, who get involved and mismanage their kids' money. We've seen, the Netflix documentary about NSYNC, who had a predator for a manager. We don't want that. We want to make sure that these kids have the resources early days to set them up for, future success.
That's perfect. That's a perfect segue for the last question before I turn it over to Aaron. This is a big one for me, because this is something that Aaron and I discuss often, and that is, what about athletes who are transitioning out of their sport? Let's say it's time to hang up the cleats, the goggles. What's the one thing they need to know about leveraging their platform and setting themselves up for the next chapter?
Yeah, your platform is a living resume. It's a living resume for people to understand who you are. So, perfect example. I was with a football player last week at the USC Sports Business Association conference. It was their annual summit. He was a Super Bowl champ, retired after 10 years, and is now starting his own foundation. He had asked me a question that made me pause for a second, because when we think of those Super Bowl athletes, we think of people who are, invincible. They're surrounded by smart, teams. They're supported by folks who have their best interests in mind the majority of the time. But he's out on his own now. He doesn't have the management team that he used to when he was in the NFL. And he said to me, I really want to go talk to one of the speakers over there, but I'm not quite sure how to approach him. What do I do? And I said, this is wild that you're asking me this, but be bold enough to go up there and introduce yourself, shake his hand. If he just gives you the blank smile and like, oh, it's nice to meet you, that's okay. But follow up with him on LinkedIn. If you have a connection to this person, ask for an introduction. But it's to the same athlete who is graduating from college, who's hanging up the cleats and the goggles. I would say, your social media is a perfect example of who you are as a person. It's your living resume. But now use that for good. Go and capture relationships on your own. Let people know who you are as a person through your sport. Your sport is a great indicator that you are a hustler, you grind, you're fantastic at what you do, you're creative. Now it's time for you to be bold enough to forge your own path. College afforded you 4 to 5 years of direction. Your future was mapped out for you while you were in school. Post education, all of that disappears. And that's an adjustment period for some of us who, when we left, we're like, oh, now what? Who do I talk to now? So there are folks like yourself who are resources to student athletes who maybe need some extra help and direction. But, do your research. YouTube is a great resource. LinkedIn is a great resource. Be bold enough to send the first message to somebody, and they may not respond. They may not respond right away. And if they do respond, be prepared to have a conversation, but always be intentional about what you're asking of somebody. Sure. Be clear and concise in your messaging, especially in a DM. Don't keep it vague, like, I just want to chat. Be very specific about why you want to chat with this person. Did they write something that you saw? Great, reference that. Social media is great because you can send a DM to somebody, or you can, send a message or a comment in a piece of social content that you see online. But, treat your social media as an opportunity to be your living resume.
No doubt. Say what you mean and mean what you say, for sure.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to turn it over to segment 4, Erin. It's the rapid fire.
Okay, this is my favorite segment. Okay, Kalei, you're just going to, Kalei, good God. Now I picked up the bad name pronouncing Kalei. I'm going to start a sentence. You're going to finish it. So here we go. So discipline equals.
Discipline equals, I got so many words running through my head. Discipline equals focus.
Leadership equals.
Ambition.
Faith equals.
Say that last one again.
Faith.
Oh, faith. Oh, faith is a driver.
Legacy equals.
What do you want everybody to know about you in the future? So I would say legacy is, there's so many. Legacy is long-term leadership and lasting impact.
I love it. What is one thing you would never compromise on?
Oh God, I would never compromise my integrity for a paycheck.
Bingo.
Love it. And if you could put one message on a billboard for the next generation of athletes, what would it be?
Don't be small. Don't ever be small. Take up space. You have a voice. You are just as great, on the field as you are off the field or on the court.
I love it.
Right on.
Don't be small. Don't play small, folks.
Ever. And to my ladies out there, female athletes, don't ever shrink yourself to try and fit. Take up, Alona Mayer said it great in her SV speech, take up space, take up, all the space, make room, for yourself at the table, and be loud and be confident in that. And do not make yourself small because you are worried about what the room that you just stepped into is going to think about you.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Right on. We're going into the closing segment here. I've got two questions for you, Kalei. Before we wrap, one, is there something we didn't touch on today that you feel student athletes, families, and universities need to hear about NIL?
Bring to the AD. I've said this, I think, ad nauseum for a lot of folks, and I feel like a broken record, but to an AD, bring in outside resources to help you, but to be consistent about it. The one-off, financial hour-long, conversation or, forced meeting is okay. But, check in with the student athletes on a regular basis to find out, are they learning anything? What else do they need? Don't just do the bare minimum and provide them with marketplaces. Give them the consistent education and bring in outside resources like myself and so many others in this space to help your student athletes become successful, because that's all we want. I mean, of course, this is a shiny new industry and everybody wants to make the money, but at the end of the day, you want to align yourself with people who want to educate and protect your student athletes. And then you use that as a recruiting and a retention tool to bring student athletes and keep them rooted, because we know how much it costs to replace an athlete who has gone into the portal and you've lost them. So let's maybe hold on to that money, right? Let's invest it into consistent resources and keep them money in house so that you aren't spending the $50,000 trying to replace another football player that just entered into the portal.
Totally. All right, for this last question, let's just have some fun. This just came to me, and I was thinking, we've seen the football movies like Rudy, we've seen Hoosiers, we've seen Field of Dreams in Bull Durham. If you could pitch a film, a Hollywood movie on swimming, what would be the premise?
Oh.
Out of left field, everybody. This was not scripted.
This is actually, it's a really interesting question, because USA Swimming has just undergone a leadership change. And, of course, the legacy of Michael Phelps is a phenomenal story. While he was training for his Olympics and for his record-setting, gold medal count, his story is fantastic. But now, as this new generation of swimmers is coming up, and they had some challenges at the Worlds not that long ago with food poisoning, I want to see kind of what the drama is. There is an appetite for that kind of a film, I'm sure, in some capacity. I think Janet Evans would be a great person to inject into that film. Janet Evans is leading LA 28 on the athlete side of things. And I saw her speak recently, and I want to understand the kind of drama that she experienced between the track and field and swimmers, because historically swimming has gone before track and field, and now it's kind of flipped.
Oh, wow.
So, student athletes or swimmers, I think, would be an interesting get. Listen, they all work very hard for their physiques, so it would make the screen look good. I'll tell you that much. But I think if I could see any film right now, it would be the impact of what Michael Phelps has done in his career and how he is now changing what USA Swimming looks like in the future.
That's badass. That's awesome. Thanks for getting on the hot seat and rolling with it. Kalei, where can people find you? Obviously, they're going to reach out to you because you have a plethora of information, and something you touched on that I don't want to gloss over, team. And that is Title IX was huge for me, and I love women's sports, and Aaron and I love working with athletes, especially female athletes, to let them know that there are options at the collegiate level. It doesn't need to stop at high school. You could take it on to college. You could take it on to the pros, whatever that looks like to you. Kalei, where can people find you?
So people can find me at nextgenlegacynil.com. Feel free to shoot me a message there, or they can find me on Instagram at nextgenlegacy_NIL. And I will always, respond back to DMs as quickly as I receive them. Same thing with messages through the website. But it's some parents are just wanting to have a conversation, an exploratory conversation. Please, by all means, come and tap me. I'm happy to kind of help them understand what this future looks like. And I want them to feel successful. And if it's not with me, that's okay. If I don't have what you're looking for, I'm sure I could probably find somebody who will help you as well.
That's badass. Awesome. Kalei Mahi, thank you so much for sharing your story and your truth. If this conversation challenged you, inspired you, or made you think differently, do two things for us, team. One, share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. A student athlete navigating NIL, a parent trying to help their kid make smart decisions, a coach or athletic director building resources for their athletes. Two, connect with Kalei on NextGen Legacy NIL and let her know what hit or what touched close to home for you. If you're serious about understanding your value and building a brand that protects your future, Kalei is the expert you need to connect with. And if you're an athlete, parent, or coach ready to raise the standard, check out Blueprint to Blue Chip. We can be found at blueprintbluechip.com. We help athletes build identity, discipline, and legacy that goes beyond the game. If you're ready to get clear on who you are beyond the game, join us for our 3-day reset win play show at blueprintbluechip.com. It's designed for athletes who are ready to rebuild to build their foundation. And if this episode resonates with you, take 30 seconds, team, and just leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps us reach more athletes, parents, and leaders who need to hear this message. This is the Standard Podcast, and this movement only grows when we raise the standard together. Talent fades, but truth endures. Raise the bar, rebuild the culture, become the standard. Team, we'll see you next time. Kalei, Aaron, thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.